Welcome to Siren Sundays. This show is focused on speaking with researchers, scientists, and practitioners of environmental sciences and all things conservation in the Bahamas. Because if you didn't know, the Bahamas is so much more than just beaches. You are now tuning in to our conservation conversation. What's splashing? Welcome to season 7 of Siren Sundays. We are now in episode 1. This is pre-recorded. I know we typically do a live show, but we made some special considerations for our amazing guests. I'm your host, Lashanti the Siren, and today we will be speaking with Jewel Beneby. Welcome, Jewel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I know this has been long awaited. So I'm
Long
happy to
overdue.
finally be on the show.
Yeah, and I'm happy to finally have you. And I think the timing, it still was perfect just because, as I shared with you a bit prior to us starting this recording, I am really excited for the lineup, of guests that I have. You all are women in the field who inspire me. Your work is amazing. I admire you guys as people. And I'm just excited to have you here and just hear about your journey through all the work that you've done in conservation and how you've just gotten to this point that you've gotten to in your career. So if you can, without further ado, just give us a little bit of background on you. Like, who is Jewel and how did you get here?
Yeah, so I guess I can dial it all the way back to childhood, just so you have a good appreciation for my journey. I spent a lot of time at the beach. I spent a lot of time exploring outside, and I'm really grateful to my family that allowed me all that freedom to really explore as a young kid. And I think there's so much value in being outside and being able to explore nature, touch it, feel it, ask questions, and get that early those early questions going, because I think that's what really starts the journey of science and the journey of that thought process to get into, okay, well, what's happening in the environment? Is this something that's good? Is it bad? Is it something that I can help? And really creating that advocacy spirit. It kind of started from just being outside early a lot, climbing trees, getting pushed off docks from my brothers and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really my beginning.
A pretty unconventional start. I know a lot of times we don't hear about little girls being able to go outside and play. So, how do you think that having that freedom really got you into even studying science or even, wanting to pursue that in school?
Yeah, I have 3 brothers, so and they're like I have sisters too, but I have 3 brothers that are right there. So, I just was the little jewel with my brothers trying to, like, truck behind them and wanting to do whatever they were doing, and the boys were usually outside and getting that exposure, so I kinda just, was their shadow, so that was great. But from that experience, again, I started asking questions and I really just love being in the water, being able to swim and explore a little bit. But fun fact, when I was a kid, I was terribly terrified of seagrass. Like swimming over seagrass. I used to think, "Oh my God, I don't know what's down there." And if you don't have any goggles or anything to see, you're like, nah, bro, I'm not gonna do it. But of course, as I grew up and I started learning about the marine environment, that really, of course, changed. But yeah, I studied, I got a bachelor's of science in, at, what do you call it? Florida Atlantic University. I'm like, where did I go to school just now?
Lord, don't let your school hear
Atlantic.
you.
I know, and I love them so much. I always rap with them. Go Owls. But yeah, I went to Florida Atlantic University. I got a bachelor's of science with a focus in marine ecology and a certification in environmental science. And that experience also like broadened my scope. I ended up working with a lot of charismatic um, marine life, like sea turtles and Then I was able to go to the Bimini Shark Lab, and I worked with seagrass a little bit too in undergrad, and I was like so bored of that. But after the fact, I really got an appreciation for how important seagrasses are and stuff like that. Yeah. And of course, I worked a little bit with dolphins and stuff like that at Blue Lagoon Island. A lot of people start off there.
Hmm.
And yeah, yeah, I just, I just kind of went from species to species trying to see, well, what's going to stick,
Yeah.
but it's the whole ecology that I really like, the marine ecology.
And that's what's important, right? I think people think that you're supposed to just know right away, like I know exactly what I want to study and how I want to study it, when really you should explore these areas and get that feel for, oh well, do I really like this? Is this something I'm passionate about? Am I interested in? And I actually have a fun fact for our viewers who are watching. I've known Jewel for years. Like I would definitely go as far as to say maybe not kindergarten exactly, but definitely elementary school. And her and I reconnected through a project that I worked on when I was at BNT, and I believe Julie, you had just maybe moved back home. But anyway, I don't want to bury the lead. What can you tell us about that work that you did when you and I reconnected in our conservation journey?
Yeah, so yeah, we definitely went to the same elementary school, same high school, and then we reconnected when we both got back at BNT. And I know you were leading the See the Future
The Bahamas
campaign, I
protected.
believe.
Yeah.
Bahamas Protected, yeah. And I actually was a volunteer with TNC at the time, where we were doing socioeconomic studies and governance principle studies. So I ended up going and traveling to the outer islands. Particularly, I think I went to that was Cat Island, and I believe I was supposed to go to Long Island as well, and we ended up doing like social surveys with the community to get a good understanding of their perceptions, their attitudes, um, yeah, their attitudes, perceptions, and knowledge of the white paper that was being put together, and that was really cool. And then I think it was during the final meeting where we kind of reconnected, and I said, "Oh yeah, wow, look, my old schoolmate, she's totally in this field and she's crushing it." So that was pretty cool.
No, same to you. And I think TNC, the Nature Conservancy, they were the big funders of that project. I actually had no idea that you were volunteering through them. I just thought, I don't know. I know that the project recruited a lot of people, and I think it's so important that you shared that, because a lot of times I think Bahamians believe that when conservationists do our work, that we don't take people into consideration and we're only focused on the species, when we're really not. And I always think it's so fun when I run into people from school. I've had a few schoolmates on the show since, and I'm just like, wow, I had no idea that you were interested in the same thing as me. So it's really great that we were able to reconnect. But I do want to jump into, now that we talk about people and we talk about conservation and we talk about the Bahamas, the project that we're here to talk about. You do the Queen Conch project in Grand Bahama, and I'm not sure, is that the correct title? I might just be be messing that whole title
Uh,
right up.
It's a really long title, so it's easy to botch, but it's the community-based conch management pilot project in the Family Islands. That's a long name. But essentially, it's looking at the community approach to sustainability of Queen Conch, but through empowering the people, giving them access to alternative livelihoods, as well as value-added products, and thinking of things from basically the ground up approach as opposed to a top down. How do we empower people? How do we connect conservation? And I like to, anytime I've posted about this, I use this hashtag, uh, the bridge between conservation and community, and connecting the two, because I think that's really the crux of the matter. We we can advocate as much as we want for species, for ecology, for the environment, but if we're not connecting it efficiently and effectively with people, then have we done our jobs in the best way?
Yeah.
So this project has been special to me because Queen Conch is so important. It's iconic in the Bahamas. It's a symbol of who we are in a lot of ways. Not saying that we're all conchs, because I know that's a trendy a trendy thing for people. But It's a thread in the fabric of a Bahamian identity. You look in the symbolism in so many parts of our culture, our economy, and our livelihoods. Queen Conch is really there, and of course our diets. People love, love conch.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's really important. But of course, when we think about what's really happening in the environment, severe, increasingly severe overfishing of juvenile populations, particularly not just fishing, because fishing isn't necessarily bad. And sometimes people are like, "Oh, don't fish." No, no, no. It's how you fish that's important. So, this project has really been looking at the overfishing of juvenile populations and how that's threatened the fishery. Um, and it's just so easily exploited in the Bahamas. It's a slow moving mollusk snail, and we have limited capacity for enforcement. We have limited capacity in terms of our laws and regulations are quite limited. For an archipelago, it's a lot of water to manage. That's a lot of ports to manage. So naturally, we're challenged. But even with that being said, that's where there's a little bit of hope because with more advocacy, more education, more empowerment of people and those communities, you can try to make a difference. So
And I think, yeah, you
I
hit
feel
the nail on the
like going
head with
on
that.
for a bit. I'm just gonna bring it in.
No, that was perfect because just like you said, that empowerment of community. And I'm not going to try to say the title again, but obviously the biggest part of that that stood out to me was the fact that it's community based. And it is a pilot, so Grand Bahama is the first island to get this project. So how do you think that this project has benefited Grand Bahama as an island, but also the people in the communities that you've been working with?
Well, we've been working 2 communities in Grand Bahama specifically. When the project was first mapped out, it did include West Grand Bahama, but because of logistics and all sorts of other factors, it just didn't make sense at the time
Hmm.
to have a pilot that was so spread out. So we focused on Sweetings Key and McLeanstown, which is in the eastern part of the island. And those 2 communities are very, very heavily they're very what do you call it? What's the word? Anyway, there's a lot of conch fishing happening. A lot of conch fishing happening
Okay.
in those 2 communities. So it was ideal to work with those communities to bring about opportunities for
Hmm.
them to increase their livelihoods and, of course, be able to better manage their resource.
So, what would you say the community's reaction was to this? I know you're an Asubian, but you were living in Grand Bahama. So, yeah, how was the community's reaction to this project? Like, were they receptive? Do you think that they were a bit resistant to you guys coming in there and trying to tell them, all the things that conservationists do, right? We people see us as believing that we are experts with these things when really we see ourselves as people who are looking to the experts, which are the communities, right? So yeah,
Yes.
so I'm interested to hear, like, how was that response from the communities?
I love that you said that because that's really the perspective, Lashanti. Although we are maybe seen as an expert, we are learning from people who fish conch every day. And we have a specific type of knowledge, but they also have a very specific type of insight and experience with the
Mhm.
animals and the species and the environment. So it's really the bridging of that, right? And connecting with the people and my knowledge and your knowledge, and let's kind of work together. I would say overall, wherever you go, you're gonna have some resistance. But I do feel that overall we've had really good participation with the project over the last few years. This project has been going on for quite some time. It started in 2018 actually, and I came on as project lead in 2019. So it's been going on for quite some time. And then, as we all know, what happened in 2019, Category 5, Hurricane Dorian, didn't just hit the Bahamas, but hit those exact same 2 communities that we've been working in. And that changed the dynamic of how we were moving forward in the project. We had to put the project on pause because we cannot move forward when people don't have their baseline needs met,
Yeah.
access to water, access to electricity, food, shelter, and there was a lot of loss of life, you know, More so, I think, in McLeanstown than Sweetingski in terms of those who stayed during the storm.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, there's those two are very um, closely knit communities. So it's like your neighbor, even if it's not a family member, it's a neighbor. You know the people. So it was important for us to pause the project, take a beat, and then reassess to see what are the needs of the community members moving forward. Are
Hmm.
they still interested in the project like this? Are they still interested in the outputs? How can we best help them, help themselves, but also still move conservation and sustainability forward?
Right.
So that's something we definitely did. We touched bases with the community in 2019 after the storm, and then again a year later, and we found that people were still interested. They still wanted to have the connection to the project. They still wanted to have the outputs being met, and be a part of that. So again, we thought that was beneficial because they could have said, you know what, no.
Yeah.
So from those surveys, that was important to be able to understand how people felt about moving things forward.
Yeah, I definitely. We don't even need to dive into the amount of devastation that was on those islands, but I so admire the people who remained, the people who survived, and their resilience. To move forward with life after such a traumatic event. But I know you had mentioned earlier, not too much earlier. Obviously, we haven't been on that long. One of the things that the project was looking at doing is these value added products. Can you share a little bit about that? Like what are value added products, especially when you think about conservation and this project specifically?
Yeah, so essentially, when we think about value-added products, it's a lot of waste products, really. When fishers, so the fishing process is pretty straightforward. Fishers collect the conch, they crack it open, they toss the shell, they skin the meat, they take the the meat and they sell it either to a fish house or to some sort of buyer.
Hmm.
But there are products along the way in that process that are valuable, that are being wasted. So how do we add value to something that you're fishing from the whole product? So um we've in our earlier surveys, we've looked at opportunities around selling like the conch slop or the operculum, or parts of the shell.
Hmm.
And that really leads me to the workshop that we actually have coming up in like one day. Literally at the end of the project, we were able to get our value added workshop going, and we were able to connect with a conch and stone and shell carver out of the US that's coming down
Wow.
physically to Grand Bahama to kind of show those skills along the way. We did have a virtual session already, so the instructor is already connected with the community, and
Awesome.
kind of talked about safety and did some live demos and stuff like that. But it'll be hands on for the community. So basically, yeah, so we're looking at helping them to increase their opportunities around value added products, and particularly around the shell. So they'll
Hmm.
be learning how to cut the conch shell in different artistic ways, hone their skills, because some of them are really talented already,
Hmm.
but also exposing people that may not have that skill already. So they're building up, and they'll be able to make additional income from a product that or from a material that is currently being wasted.
Definitely. And I think just even one of the, I don't know if it's like a basic concept of conservation, but that minimal to no waste, zero waste. So being able to fully use every bit of that conch shell, not only is beneficial because you're not wasting products, but maybe that'll cause people to fish less conch. We can hope. Maybe it'll make them go for the bigger conch, right? Like because you want more shell.
Yeah, exactly. And but not just going for a bigger conch shell, but also if you are already fishing conch, right?
Hmm.
And you are selling the meat, you can now have an opportunity to sell that shell as well and get more money, either
Hmm.
selling it because you've made a product from it, or selling it to someone who's using if you're cutting it into particular pieces or something like that, you can get it for a less for some sort of value, and being able to create a market around there.
Yeah.
And that's just something that we've been exploring. And so far, the community has been really excited about that and interested. So that's exciting for me.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that it's going so well, and it's sad that you got the end. But before we shift gears in our conversation, I am very interested to know what are some of the things that you thought was funny, interesting, and I like to call them common misconceptions. You're definitely this will be the third episode that I've talked about the queen conch, and it's always such different information. I think the queen conch is such a well-known species in our community, and it still somehow gets to be unknown. Like there's a lot of things that people still don't know about the conch. So what would be just one, or if you have more than one or two things that you thought was really interesting that people thought that was actually not true about the conch?
There's so many things, to be honest. I there's a long list of things that are really interesting to me. I guess the biggest one that stood out was a lot of the fishers actually, when I met with them, they weren't able to tell the difference between male and female, and I thought that was so interesting. They thought it was the the gender was by the shell, like the size of
Oh
the
wow.
shell. And I heard a couple different versions of that of, "Oh, well, oh, this is the female part, this is the male part." I thought that was really interesting because it's like, you may think that because you know something, someone else knows something.
Right.
But that was a big misconception. And also, oh my gosh, this one was big. Um, the thinking that conch eat each other, well, queen conch particularly, or they'll like eat lettuce or eat like conch slop, but they're
Interesting.
herbivores.
Yeah.
They eat algae. So even maybe some of the fishers, like they would have like a corral near their dock or something like that, and they might be trying to feed the conch with the conch slop
Yeah.
from what they and I was like,
They
oh
probably
my
were
gosh, no.
terrified. Those
Yeah,
poor
yeah,
conch.
but that was one of the biggest misconceptions. Like, what do they eat? What's their diet? Now, there are types of conch that are carnivorous,
Hmm.
but queen conch, the conch that we go after, the conch that we fish and we love so much, that is actually an herbivore. And to extend that point too, I remember growing up, I grew up in a very healthy environment. I didn't eat conch, and I still don't eat conch actually.
Oh, fun
I
fact.
was told that conch were scavengers like crawfish or shrimp and stuff like
Hmm.
that, but they're herbivores.
Yeah.
They actually don't scavenge at all. They eat
Hmm.
algae. So I think that's something that is often sometimes a big misconception, wider than the community. People just
Hmm.
think, oh, they're because they're on the bottom, they're just eating anything, but they're not.
Yeah.
So.
And I do want to take a step back and just for the edification of our guests, and even just a reminder for myself, how do you tell the male and the female conch apart?
So the female has a I do have a no, well, I don't have a live shell.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have a live conch, but I do have a couple shells here, but essentially the female has a groove, and then the male has a verge. So a member basically. And when they need to copulate, they come together and the male will breach the passage with the female and be able to um you know
Reproduce.
reproduce. So
I
yeah.
love the way that you scientifically and very politically correct said how reproduction happens in the conch. And I know you
Yeah.
said this project is coming to an end, which is probably super sad for you. I know you've put a lot of time and energy into this, and not only was it Dorian, but I even forgot that this project, COVID happened, right? Like there's just been so many challenges, and to hear that it's finally coming to an end. How are your feelings about that? And what's next for Jewel?
Let me tell you, I've been working on this project so long, but it's become a passion of mine. It's the multi-layeredness of it, the project management aspect, the grant management aspect that I really enjoy. It's the connection with the community that I enjoy, and then it's also conservation. So it's really been like a really good marriage of sorts of different interests that I have. But I'm open to new projects and new opportunities, but this has definitely been something that I have enjoyed regardless of the challenges. And like I did mention, natural disaster, COVID-19, global pandemic, and just the sheer difficulty sometimes of doing things in the Bahamas.
Oh, I
Sometimes
know.
it's very hard, sometimes it's very difficult, especially in the conservation realm and nonprofit realm. So, yeah, it's been difficult in a lot of ways, but I think that you can't really you don't really grow without challenge. So I've definitely been able to grow a lot throughout this project, and I'm better for it having gone through what I've gone through with
Mhm,
the exposure. And again, like you mentioned, I lived in Grand Bahama for 3 years as project lead and really was foot to foot with the
yeah,
process of things and being able to get to know the people in a different way. And I think that makes a difference too, being on the ground
mhm,
when you're doing community outreach as well as community empowerment, I would say.
right. I know, and just to pull in something else that you've recently done and also promote the Bahama Jewel, you were also a part of some mangrove restoration as well.
Yeah. So let me tell you, even though I am the conch lead, in terms of this project, I've still been doing other things along the way, and definitely lots of mangrove restoration, again, with the East Grand Bahama community, being able to do outplantings with other partners along the way, and working with community members and volunteers, and really just trying to get things going and get things started,
Mhm.
and injecting life back into a lot of those dead mangrove communities has been a very important journey for me as well. So yeah, that's definitely been more to it for the work in Grand Bahama. And Grand Bahama is such a special place, and particularly East Grand Bahama. If you haven't gone, I would definitely recommend you going and experiencing that side of the island. It's very islandy. It's not Nassau. So don't go with the Nassau mentality. You don't
Or the
go with a big
Freeport
city
mentality.
mentality or even a Freeport mentality. But I think that being able to experience the outer islands, the true outer islands, gives you good perspective about what it means to be a Bahamian, or even just live in the Bahamas.
Yeah, I love that. And I always I know as a child I always was so envious that people from Grand Bahama could call themselves Grand Bahamians. Um but yeah, I totally agree. I think Bahamians really miss out when they don't take the time to travel to our outer islands. Like we all want to go to Florida and we want to go to Europe and we want to go all over the world, but there's just so much beauty and wonder in our family islands, and it's not just the beach. I think that's also something that I think a lot of people, not only Bahamians, but just tourists or any visitors from other countries, just assume that all we have is beaches. We have caves, we have forest, we have so many different animals and endemic, native, like, it's just so much amazing things that the Bahamas has to offer. And I can only hope that, as conservationists, we continue to share this passion. But I do want to touch on, how can viewers learn more about the work that you do? Because it is not only the Conch Project. I'm sure, as someone who used to work at the Bahamas National Trust and is aware of the work of the National Trust, there is so much going on. So how can viewers get involved with your work, find out about this project, find out about internships, mentorships, and all this other stuff? Like, how can they get involved?
Yeah, so I would definitely say going on to Bahamas National Trust, the BNT website actually. There's a lot of opportunities for engagement there and finding out more about special projects that we have or just general work that we have going on, whether that's volunteering with the education department or getting outside and just exploring the parks itself. And then, of course, this project in particular, there are resources on our website that would be informative towards what we're doing around conch, but also mangroves and other very important species, whether it's the Bahama parrot or flamingo or anything like that. So the BNT um, website is definitely one that I would encourage people to go to find out more and become a member.
That's always the main one,
That's
right? Become a member. Like if you can't give time, if you can't give a lot of money, it's cheaper than having a Netflix subscription, on an annual basis. But as we start to wrap up, it's been a wonderful time with you. I am interested, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask guests, is who is someone in the sector, whether it be someone locally in the Bahamas or someone who's international, that inspires you and why?
Honestly, I have a lot of inspiration around me. One of the first people to kind of encourage me along the way. Well, there may be some people before her, but Lindsay Knowles. Um,
Yeah.
Lindsay Knowles, she's a mermaid, Bahamas mermaids. And she was really she encouraged me at a very pivotal moment in my life. I wasn't sure if I could do a thing, and she kind of just said, "No, you can totally do this thing. Just do it. Just apply,
That's
apply." And
Lindsay.
sometimes you just need someone to motivate you to put yourself out there. You may be having a lot of self-doubt, or thinking that, "Oh, well, why would they choose me?" But she definitely encouraged me early on to get into the arena in a way that at a time when I needed that. And then also there's so many other mentors. There was Nicholas Smith that I did a lot of lionfish early on, like lionfish research with. I helped her. Well, she was doing her PhD at the time. I mean, love her. There's also Shelly Kent Woodside, my old boss. Oh my gosh. Shelly is just a wealth of knowledge. There's also other people that I'm inspired by. Krista Sherman. I mean, come on, Krista.
Yeah.
She's amazing. There's Crystal Ambrose. There's Lakeisha Anderson Roll. Like, there's Lashanti, the Siren. There's so many females in this space that I'm inspired by. Um, I could go on, like, honestly.
Hmm.
I feel like women in this space is so important, and the roles that they play and the way that they just exude this confidence about themselves, and also just are champion I got that word together. Being champions for the environment, and particularly a lot of these women are in the marine environment also. So it's really, yeah, I have a lot of inspiration around me. Alana, um, it's a lot.
Such an
Oh yes. Oh
amazing.
my gosh, how could I forget Megan? Megan is, oh, she's like a mentor to me, honestly.
He's so
She has a
modest.
beautiful spirit, and has taught me so much along the way as well. Megan, yes, thank you. I could just say a public thank you to you for inspiring me. And even through this project, she's always been, like I said, a really good mentor for me. So sorry, I have a long list.
No,
It
and
wasn't
that's okay.
a
And
one
I
name.
think it's so important that viewers, even especially young girls. I mean, this season is definitely very women centric, but the fact that all of the people you listed were women in the field, some of which I have met before and worked with, some of which I've never met and never had the opportunity to work with, and that's in itself is inspiring to know that there's so many of us out there, and there can be so many more. And with that, I want to know if you had to give a word of advice, whether it be your favorite quote or just something, a lesson you learned along your career, to someone watching, whether it be a young girl or a young boy or anybody who you would want to inspire. What would those final thoughts be?
Honestly, I mean, I'm thinking about it because I actually have someone that recently reached out to me. And she just called me out of the blue. I don't know her. She heard my name from someone in East Grand Bahama community
Nice.
and did something unrelated, but she was trying to get into kind of the feel a little bit. Um, but the advice that I gave her was that where you are right now, it may seem difficult and you're going to go through challenges, but it doesn't mean that your journey ahead isn't going to be, you're not going to get to where you need to go, you know? And it's the small steps, like just keep making steps towards what you want in life.
Hmm.
Sometimes you get discouraged and overwhelmed. And like we mentioned earlier in the show, life happens. Sometimes it's out of our controls, but you have to try to be as resilient as possible. I know some people are like, I'm tired of being resilient,
I'm tired of
but
being strong.
I'm being strong, but I think it builds a lot of character. And I think that's important because we get to be better humans, better people to each other, and better advocates for the environment or for anything that we're advocating for because
Mhm.
of the character that we have and the experiences that we go through. So life is sometimes very difficult, but baby steps, baby steps.
Absolutely. I think that's so important that you say that because a lot of times, I know, especially when we tell people, be grateful, like calm waters doesn't make a strong captain, or however that saying is. I think it's also important just to tell people sometimes just being grateful for where you're at as you go through challenges also just gives you more of a perspective shift, and it makes it a little easier for you to appreciate, the fact that you've survived or are surviving, um, and getting through, and I don't know where this train of thought is going for me, but I will just bring it back and say, if you have a passion, a vision, or something that you want to do, don't let obstacles in the road deter you. Don't let the world shutting down because of a pandemic, stop your dreams. And yeah, just push through. I mean, the show came out of the pandemic. Like, look at it. Like, we're on our 7th season, and I have such amazing guests. And Julie, you are definitely one of my dearest friends, and I'm so happy that I finally got you on this show. Again, you inspire me every day in your professional life, your personal life, the person that you are, as a whole. And I'm so happy that we were able to do this, and so happy that I get to call you a colleague and a friend. So thank you so much for your time. I know you have such a busy schedule, but this has been such a great episode, and I just look forward to hearing more about your journey as you continue on.
Oh, Lashanti, that's too kind of you. You're too kind. But yes, thank you for having me. And it's been such an amazing opportunity to be here just to share a bit of what I'm doing and a bit of who I am as a person and my exposure and experiences. So, and again, like you said, I love the ending point, being grateful in the small things,
Mhm.
it really makes a difference. And having that good perspective or a well rounded perspective helps you on your journey because life will be difficult, but gratitude is a must. So
Definitely. I'm going to
thanks
say
again for
thank you.
having me.
Yes, thank you to all the viewers for watching this pre-recording. Please feel free to pop any questions that you may have had throughout the show right in the comment section. I will go and check them. If Jewel doesn't see them, I will send them to her. And please follow the Bahamas National Trust on all social medias. Check the website out. And yeah, just keep riding the wave with us.